7 years post-divorce, I encountered my ex. His words sent chills. 7 years gone. Ethan whispered at the farmer's market. You were never supposed to know. The words slid under my skin like a cold blade. I was bagging cherries after a 12-hour shift, name badge still pinned. Nora Ramos, RN, Community Health. I had rebuilt my life around the simple proof of pulses and charts. People breathe, wounds knit, days move forward. I had a lease I could afford, a second-hand bike, a basil plant that refused to die. I had peace the way you hold hot tea, steady hands, careful. I'm sober now, he said, eyes glossy, the exact shade of the denim jacket I once stole from him during a beach bonfire. It's different. Different how? I kept my tone level, clinic calm. He glanced at the crowd, at a trio of teenagers laughing through blue snow cones. I need to tell you about what really happened, he said. Back then, the custody hearing. Your resignation letter. My resignation letter. I had drafted it in a motel with bad carpet while my lawyer, well, Priya, not yet a lawyer, just my best friend, highlighted clauses. I didn't resign, but the rumor of it lived like gum under a shoe, sticking to interviews, to dates, to the way Aunt Lorraine watched me over roast chicken. I had scraped it off with years. I have to get to the clinic, I said, even though my shift was over. He nodded like he'd expected that. There's a storage unit key, he said. Unit C-17, Lockridge Storage, off Stowe. Why tell me now? Because someone else is looking, he said. And you were never supposed to know. My heart learned a new rhythm then. The uneven gallop you hear in a patient's chest before a crash. I want you to understand something. Stability is a fragile structure, and mine was built from routines and documents. I had rebuilt myself with dates, charts, and a lockbox of letters. I stood to lose more than the past. I stood to lose my future license if lies resurfaced as truth. I looked at Ethan and saw a door I'd nailed shut begin to breathe. Then he said a name I hadn't heard since court. Detective Harris. I whispered back what I had promised myself never to ask again. We were not always a courtroom echo. The first year was cinnamon rolls and tiny apartments and lists taped to the fridge. Pay electric. Call mom. Fix sink. Ethan played guitar on Wednesdays. I worked nights at the clinic, stitching up bicycle accidents and coaxing anxious toddlers to show their throats. The erosion was slow, missed texts, a drawer of receipts that shaped a new language. The concrete fracture came during our 4th-year anniversary dinner, when his phone face-down buzzed to a rhythm I recog. At the market, his eyes kept flicking to the exit like bad news had feet. The sting from today, you were never supposed to know, forced old bruises awake. At home, I opened the shoebox of documented leftovers from that season. A parking receipt stamped August 14th, a clinic schedule inked in green, the copy of my declaration where resignation appears in a rumor, not reality. I texted Priya, saw him. Says storage unit C-17. Says someone else is looking. She called. Do not go alone. Ethan said a name. I replied. Detective Harris. From 7th Precinct? She asked. He took your statement when the tires got slashed. The memory came in like a cold draft. The hiss of air, the glitter of rubber on asphalt, the way the officer wrote my words without looking up. Meet me in the morning, Priya said. We'll pull the civil index. Also, use your nurse brain. Dates, times, sources. Aunt Lorraine sent a text a minute later, as if the universe loved timing. Are you eating? Roast pork tomorrow. I typed. I might be busy. She replied, not too busy to keep your future steady. I set the shoebox on the table and breathed like before a hard-fought start. The voicemail came at 2:07 a.m., a block number that still left a chill. You think you're safe, a man's voice said, low and unhurried. Unit C-17 isn't yours. He didn't hang up right away. I could hear a radio in the background, an advertisement for a tire shop on County Road, a voice reading off hours and alignment specials. I saved the file, labeled it voicemail_0207, M4A, and sent it to Priya with 3 words. This just escalated. At the clinic, a file discrepancy waited with my coffee. Mrs. Valdez's post-op note had moved from Tuesday to Friday without my sign-off. It looked small, like a misplaced spoon, but small errors are how ships sink. I checked the audit trail, modified at 5:42 by an admin account I didn't recognize. I flagged it. I printed the version history. I put dates in the right-hand margin because I am, by nature, a person who lines up facts like vials in a tray. At lunch, my banking app sent a new device alert, a login attempt from a zip code I hadn't visited since the divorce hearing. I changed my password and wrote the time in my notebook, circling the minute like a bruise. Come by after your shift, Priya texted. I've pulled docket numbers. Something sealed popped up. When I turned the key at home, I saw a yellow flyer wedged into my doorframe. A storage facility ad from Lockridge, offering 2 months free for returning customers. I hadn't been a customer. I shut the door, leaned my head against the cool wood, and counted to 10 like we used to in storm drills. My mind said coincidence. My stomach said pattern. I replayed Ethan at the market. He had meant the line to sting, but I heard the shape of fear inside it. I kept the lights on while I wrote down everything again. I called the super. He said a man in a baseball cap had already left the vestibule. I set a mug beneath the peephole like a tiny alarm and replayed the voicemail with earbuds, writing down the ad's phone number to trace in the morning. I texted Aunt Lorraine a white lie, late paperwork, and put the pepper spray on the nightstand with my keys. The city's hum pressed close, like a hand on a door I hadn't locked well enough. Then the apartment buzzer screamed, once, and the silence that followed felt aimed. Ethan waited outside the clinic at dusk, clutching a paper coffee cup the color of defeat. Urgent news, he said before I could pass. 5 minutes. 2, I said. He walked beside me to the corner where the bus stop posters peel in summer. There's a sealed addendum to our divorce, he said. Not mine. Yours. My what? You signed something you didn't read, he said. You were shaking. You trusted me. I remembered the cheap pen and the fluorescent glare and the way my hand had trembled when the clerk said we were almost done. But I also remembered Priya reading every page like a hawk with glasses. I didn't sign anything without counsel, I said. He swallowed. It's about the clinic. And your license. An ambulance screamed past us, a familiar sound that usually steadied me. It didn't. I imagined a stamped envelope sliding under a door I hadn't opened in years. The same hour, Priya texted me a photo. County Civil. Index search. See sealed order addendum B. Corroborates, she wrote. Let's get the file number. Inside, I pulled Mrs. Valdez's chart again and found a red banner I swear hadn't been there. Access limited. Refer to admin. A sealed records notation. On a patient chart. It was like finding tape over a smoke alarm. Who touched this? I asked the floor manager. IT upgrade, she said too quickly. Standard. I emailed myself screenshots. I printed the audit log to PDF and sent it to Priya. She replied with a thumb up and a single line. We move tonight. Ethan reached for my sleeve. Please don't go there alone. Where? Lockridge, he said. Unit C, 17. They'll know if you open it. When I asked who they were, Ethan only looked past me and smiled afraid. Who will know? I said. The ones who paid for silence, he answered, voice low. I don't have names. You never do? I said. He unfolded a crumpled receipt and showed me times scrawled in pencil. 207, 542, 1231, 1814. If it repeats, don't be alone, he said. They like patterns. Then we'll break them, I said, as the sky slid from pink to bruised blue. Aunt Lorraine believes in casseroles and warnings. I arrived to the smell of time and the sound of a radio talk show arguing about streetlights. She handed me a plate before I could protest. Eat, she said. Then talk. I told her the condensed version. Market, voicemail, chart glitch, sealed addendum, storage unit. She listened without interrupting, which is the loudest form of love I know. Soft landings, she said when I was done. You always try to make them for him. No more. I'm not trying to hurt him, I said. You're trying not to hurt yourself, she replied. Different mission. Priya called on speaker. I have the index number, she said. Addendum B exists. It references a professional stipulation and an interim safety plan. I'll draft a request to unseal or at least view in camera. What does that mean for me? I asked. It means someone wrote rules about your life without your eyes, Priya said. And that can't stand. Aunt Lorraine's fork paused midair. Don't go to that storage unit tonight, she said. Daylight only, with someone who can witness. What would you do if the past knocked at your door? I asked, half to myself. I'd ask who sent it, she said. Then I'd make tea and call my lawyer niece. You're not my niece, Priya said, laughing. But I accept. We set a plan, records office at 9, Lockridge after, precinct if needed. I gathered the dishes, grateful for tasks with edges. On the fridge, a faded checklist held with a magnet read, bills, calls, faith. Lorraine added another line with a pen, evidence. As we left, she pressed a small metal cross into my hand. Not for faith, she said, for grip. Do you think he's truly sober? She asked quietly at the door. I don't know, I said. He sounded like a man who rehearsed regret. The dangerous ones practice regret, she said. It wears well. I drove home past the courthouse and a tire shop still open late. Priya promised plain English by morning, and I promised myself to sleep with lights off. Outside, the streetlight flickered twice and then stayed dark like a held breath. Priya met me at the records office with 2 coffees and a tote bag stuffed with color tabs. We go in like librarians, she said. Quiet, organized, relentless. The clerk behind the glass, a woman with a silver bun and a nameplate that read J. Mendez, asked for our index numbers. Priya slid the request across. We're aware parts are sealed, Priya said gently. We're seeking permissible summaries. Mendez squinted. Addendum B is sealed by joint stipulation, she said. Petitioner and respondent both agreed. I didn't agree, I said. Then someone signed on your behalf, she replied. Happens with emergency orders, sometimes. She printed a docket sheet with black bars where lines should be. I can confirm existence and date, Mendez said. Filed September 10th, 7 years ago today. The date pulled my breath taut. Ethan and I signed final papers the next week. Priya lifted a brow. Metadata matters, she whispered. We stepped aside, and she photographed the public portions, timestamp on. Chain of custody, she said. Even for screenshots. On the way out, a man leaned on the wall by the elevator, a baseball cap shading his eyes. Unit C-17, he muttered, just loud enough. Priya froze. Excuse me, she said, lawyer voice crisp. He pushed off the wall and walked toward the stairwell. I stepped to follow, but Priya caught my sleeve. No chasing, she said. We document. Outside, we cross-checked the county stamp with my calendar from that year. The day Addendum B was filed, I had charted 12 patients and gone home to sleep. The contradiction was a hook in my throat. Storage next, Priya said. Daylight, witnesses. Aunt Lorraine texted. I'm parked across from Lockridge, blue Corolla, snacks included. We pulled in 30 minutes later. The manager, a bearded man in a polo that said Lockridge, flipped through a ledger. C-17, he said. Authorized users on file. He read 2 names, Ethan Ramos, and my maiden name paired with a middle initial I do not have. Priya's phone chimed. A voicemail transcription from an unknown number repeating the word interim 3 times in a row. The manager slid a clipboard forward and asked for signatures while a forklift beeped somewhere behind metal doors. Then a storage hallway door banged open, and someone killed the lights 1 row over. We used our phone flashlights and our comm voices. Locksmith on site. Priya asked the manager, who swore and tapped a control panel until the fluorescents hummed awake. Aunt Lorraine materialized beside us with a bag of pretzels like a cavalry of one. I brought protein, she said, and a tire iron. Unit C-17's lock was new brass and cool. The key Ethan had slipped me at the market weighed my pocket like a decision. We're recording, Priya said, lifting her phone. Time and date, 11:23 a.m. Lockridge Storage, Unit C-17. I turned the key. Inside, banker's boxes, a garment bag, a plastic tote with a cracked lid. On top, an envelope. Nora, do not open alone. Cute, Aunt Lorraine muttered. Priya nodded at the phone. Chain of custody, she reminded me, and I slit the envelope with my clinic scissors. Inside were color copies of emails between my clinic and an address labeled Ethan. Personal plus insurance, with a plus alias I'd never seen. One read, as discussed, Nora will resign to protect the license pending interim safety plan. The timestamp was 09/09 at 1814. Forgery, I said, mouth dry. I never wrote this. Priya zoomed in. The font spacing is wrong, she said. And the clinic footer is an older template retired that summer. Another envelope held a receipt from a key-cutting kiosk dated August 14th, the same day as a parking slip in my shoebox. A ledger page listed cash advance, $1, $200, Stowe tire. Why tires? Aunt Lorraine asked. Because the ads on the voicemail mentioned alignment specials, I said. County Road. At the bottom of the tote sat a black pocket recorder. I pressed play. Ethan's voice, younger, wavered, and a second voice I didn't recognize said, "Get the stipulation signed, or we pull the story." "What story?" Priya asked the air. I stared at the garment bag, unzipped it, and found a navy dress I wore to the hearing, still carrying the faint powder scent of that day. In the pocket, a safety deposit box slip, stamped Laurel Bank, Box 312. Aunt Lorraine took my hand. "Next step is slow and careful," she said firmly. Outside, a black sedan idled by the exit lane, and someone photographed our license plate. We drove to Laurel Bank like we were transporting nitroglycerin. Priya sat in back, tapping notes into a document titled Chronology, marking each item with time, place, and source. "If this is going to court," she said, "we treat memory like a witness who needs supervision." At the vault desk, a clerk checked my ID and the slip. "Box 312 requires 2 keys," she said. "Do you have both?" I stared. "I have none." She frowned. "There's also a notation, dual authorization due to prior incident." "What incident?" Priya asked. "I'm not authorized to say," the clerk said, then tilted her head slightly, as if the human part of her wanted to help. "You could file a request to inventory in presence of law enforcement." "Detective Harris," I said aloud, tasting the name for steadiness. Back in the car, Aunt Lorraine said, "We loop him in now or never sleep again." I dialed the precinct and asked for him. He called back an hour later, voice gravel with a smile beneath. "Ms. Ramos," he said. "Didn't expect to hear your name again." "Me neither," I said, and summarized. The voicemail, the altered chart, the sealed addendum, the storage unit, the bank. "Bring what you have," he said. "No promises, but I can witness an inventory if policy allows." We met him at a coffee shop we'd both used during the old case. He wore the same windbreaker that made everyone look like a coach and set a small notebook on the table. "I'll check with Laurel," he said. "Meanwhile, who benefits if your reputation frays?" "Ethan," I said, then shook my head. "But also someone who wanted leverage." "Names." "Stowe Tire keeps featuring," I said. "Cash advance logs." He nodded. "We've seen laundered advances pushed through small auto shops." He wrote Unit C, 17 on a napkin and underlined it twice. "Don't linger at Lockridge," he said. "Facilities like that get watched." The coffee shop door chimed. Ethan stepped in, paused, and saw us all at once. He raised his hands like a man greeting a firing squad and slid into the booth. "I didn't want you to open it alone," he said, eyes on me. "But I knew you would." "Who signed my name?" I asked. "That depends on what you found," he said carefully, speaking like he was defusing a bomb. "Box 312, I said, and his face moved through 3 emotions in silence. Ethan swallowed hard, then said, "If that opens, we all lose more than pride." We laid the plan out on Aunt Lorraine's dining table the way families lay out puzzles, edges first, then filling. Priya sketched a flow. 1. Harris secures inventory at Laurel Bank. 2. Request in-camera review of Addendum B. 3. Forensics on emails. 4. Quiet approach to clinic compliance about the altered chart. 5. Decide when and whether to speak to Ethan on record. "We do not confront without a safety net," Priya said. Ethan paced. "You think I wanted this?" "I think you wanted options," I said. "And you took mine." He flinched, and "Saturday, there was a threat," he said. "Not to you. To my mother." "You don't have a mother alive to threaten," Aunt Lorraine said, gentler than her words. "My biological mother," he said softly. "She reached out during our 3rd year. Someone found out." Priya didn't react, which is why I trust her. "So you signed a stipulation that painted Nora unreliable," she said, "to keep a rumor from surfacing." Ethan stared at his hands. "It was supposed to be temporary," he said. "An interim safety plan. I thought I could fix it before the final orders." "But you didn't," I said. He lifted his head, finally honest enough to burn. "I gambled on time and lost." "My license," I said. "My name." "I know," he whispered. "I know." Priya slid the recorder across the table. "Who was the second voice?" He pressed his lips together. "A man who wasn't supposed to exist on paper," he said. "Goes by Mac. Ran money through small shops like Stowe Tire." Harris arrived as we finished the outline, knocking once and letting the door swing. Bank will allow an inventory with me present at 10 tomorrow, he said. No removal, only cataloging. He looked at Ethan without smiling. And you are? Complication, Ethan said. Noted, Harris replied, dry as police humor. Ms. Ramos, keep your phone charged, your doors locked, and your ego humble. I nodded. I can do 2 of those. Which 2? He asked. Guess, I said, and he almost smiled. We packed the documents into folders labeled with dates and simple phrases. Storage, bank, docket, clinic. Priya touched my shoulder. Last choice before momentum carries us, she said. Do we warn the clinic tonight or let the audit alarms ring first? We chose silence for one night and dinner for cover. Ethan insisted on paying, a gesture that landed wrong. This is an absolution, I said. I know, he replied, palms open. It's logistics. He picked a quiet place near the river where the menus are laminated and the servers remember birth dates. Nora, he began. I'm not excusing anything, but the man on that tape, Mac, he doesn't forgive exposure. Then he'll hate what's coming, Priya said, sipping water. Our server set down plates. I cut my salmon into neat squares because neatness is my last superstition. Ethan tried again. If you frame this as clinic error, you'll be safer than framing it as a ring, he said. That's advice from someone who built a ring, Aunt Lorraine said. He sighed. I built a door and let wolves walk through. Harris texted, Laurel confirmed. See you at 10. Bring recorder. Ethan watched me read and leaned closer. If you find my signature on anything, remember I was cornered. You cornered yourself, I said. A shadow fell over the table. The man from Lockridge, baseball cap, faded jacket, stood at the next booth pretending to study the specials. He turned his head a fraction too much. Priya's voice snapped like a ruler. You need something? He smiled without teeth. Directions to County Road, he said. Google has those, Aunt Lorraine replied. He shrugged and left a business card at our edge. No name, only a number and the words alignment done right. When he walked out, the doorbell chimed like a dime in a jar. We are leaving, Priya said, already folding receipts into her wallet. Outside, the river threw soft light like a bribed witness. Ethan grabbed my elbow. If Harris opens that box, he said, don't read the first page in public. What's the first page? I asked. The reason I did everything, he said, and his voice wobbled like a bridge in wind. Aunt Lorraine opened the car door. Get in, she said. Enough theater for one night. As we pulled away, a motorcycle eased from the curb and followed 2 lengths back, engine purring like a cat that bites. The bike's headlight blinked twice, then the rider pointed 2 fingers straight at us. We set the mediation in a neutral place. The community room at Laurel Bank, glass walls and beige chairs and a ficus trying its best. Harris took a corner seat and looked like upholstery with eyebrows. We're here to inventory box 312, he told the bank officer, a crisp woman named Carla. No removal. Witnesses present. Carla slid a tray with 2 keys. Dual authorization, she said. Detective, and she looked at me. Ms. Ramos, as named client. My heart moved against my ribs like it wanted out. I turned key 1. Harris turned key 2. The box slid free with a soft metallic sigh. Inside, manila folders, a thumb drive, a Polaroid of a newspaper headline folded to hide the date. We arranged everything on the table and numbered items with sticky flags. Folder 1 held sworn statements. 1 stamped received. Unsealed copy. Do not duplicate. My name was on the first line, but the signature below belonged to someone else wearing my letters. I swallowed. They traced my handwriting, I said. Or copied a prior form, Priya said. See the loop on the R? It's recycled. Folder 2 contained a clinic memo draft about an interim safety plan referencing off-site supervision for controlled substances, which made no sense. I handled community wound care, not narcotics. Dates, 09/08, 09/12. Harris wrote the timeline on his notebook margin and circled September 10th. Addendum day, he murmured. The thumb drive printed a directory to the bank's screen. alias_email, insurance_calls, and 1 folder titled Mac_memo. Carla raised a brow and turned the screen slightly away while Harris photographed the directory list without opening files. Chain preserved, he said. The Polaroid, unfolded, showed a headline about a malpractice suit against a clinic across town. The date, September 11th. A red pen had circled a paragraph about staff resignation under review. Ethan stood very still. He promised me if I steered suspicion your way, he said quietly, he'd steer the story away from you entirely. You bought protection by renting my name, I said. The room's glass door opened, and the bank's manager walked in with the man from Lockridge at his shoulder. Sir, this room is reserved, Carla said, spine formal. The manager, tie too tight, smile too thin, gestured apologetically. He's a vendor for our security system, he said. Harris didn't look up as he flipped his notebook closed. Vendor can wait, he said. The man tipped his cap and met my eyes, indifferent as weather. Alignment done right, he murmured, and tapped the glass with one fingernail before stepping back into the hall. Carla exhaled. We'll continue, she said curt now. Priya leaned in. Nora, read the first page Ethan warned about, she said. I lifted a sheet labeled Contact Protocol. It listed 3 names, Ethan Ramos, Nora Ramos, and a third, Maria L., last name cut off, mother, biological. Under leverage, a line read, if exposure risk rises, threaten to file complaint alleging medication diversion by Nora. Prepare draft resignation language. Aunt Lorraine made a sound I've only heard in church when grief breaks quiet. Ethan covered his face. I thought he'd never use it, he whispered. Harris's pen stopped. So the play was simple, he said. Float a resignation rumor. Bait the clinic to overcorrect. Tie Nora's hands. Keep the real target elsewhere. Target being the other clinic, Priya said, tapping the newspaper photo. Ethan nodded. And my mother, he added, voice hollow. She'd resurfaced. Mac wanted her quiet. Where is she now? I asked. Gone again, he said. Safer, I told myself. Harris photographed the page edges, never the text, preserving content without copying it. We need court, he said. And we need to unseal Addendum B. Priya straightened. I'll file today. Nora, we'll request a protective order on your personnel file. Carla reboxed the items to return to the vault. You can submit a request for copies through counsel, she said to me. When we stood, the hall was empty. The manager's smile had evaporated. The vendor was gone. Outside, the motorcycle idled again, patient as a ticking metronome. Ethan touched my arm. I can talk to him, he said. No, Harris said. You can sit still and not improvise consequences. Ethan's mask slipped entirely then, fear raw as a new wound. You don't understand, he said to me, voice shaking. This doesn't end with paper. The motorcycle rolled forward, and a folded note fluttered from the rider's hand toward my feet. The note said, Stop inventory. Next call, clinic board. Beneath it, a time, 1600 hours, and a number I did not recognize. We're documenting this, Priya said, photographing the message and emailing herself the image with subject line threat _16:00. Harris angled his chin. We let them call, he said, and we let them be recorded. At 3:58, we sat around Aunt Lorraine's kitchen table again, laptops open, phones set to speaker with an app that announces recording to satisfy the state law. The call rang at exactly 1600. Ms. Ramos, a smooth voice said. We've received concerning information about your documentation practices. From whom? Priya asked, honey over steel. Anonymous, the voice replied. But detailed. A resignation seems advisable while we review. I inhaled through my nose slow. Please send the concerns in writing, I said. I will respond with counsel. A pause. Paper rustled, theater creaked. We can expedite if you voluntarily suspend, the voice added. Harris scribbled, stall. Get name. Who am I speaking with? I asked. More paper. This is interim counsel, he said finally. You'll receive a letter. We'll look for a signature, Priya said, ending the call before they could. Aunt Lorraine clapped once, softly, a coach's nod. That's how we do it, she said. Within an hour, an email hit my inbox from a domain I recognized as the clinic's outside firm. Attached, a draft resignation letter with my name already filled. The timestamp read 1621. Priya compared headers. Origin server's wrong, she said. Spoof or internal bad actor using a tunnel. Harris lifted the recorder. This is enough to trigger real oversight, he said. You'll have turbulence at work, but it keeps this fight in sunlight. Consequences, I said, watching my steady life buckle. They were always coming, Aunt Lorraine said. Now they have uniforms. At 9 that night, a process server knocked with a notice, a motion to maintain the seal on addendum B due to safety concerns. Priya read it twice and smiled like a person appreciating an opponent's mistake. They just admitted there's danger, she said, which invites the court to supervise. My phone buzzed again. Ethan, I'm outside. Please. 2 minutes. I opened the door to find him shaking, and behind him stood the man from Lockridge. Inside, I said, voice flat. Aunt Lorraine stepped from the kitchen with a dish towel like a flag. Priya stood, already dialing Harris. The man from Lockridge lifted his hands. Name's Mac, he said, casual as a neighbor borrowing sugar. We're all friends if no one panics. No, Priya said. We're parties in a documented matter, and you are trespassing. He smiled. That's lawyer talk for hello? Ethan's voice broke. He said you were in danger, he mumbled. Mac tilted his head toward me. Danger's just a word for momentum you don't control, he said. Here's the offer. Nora resigns. The addendum stays sealed, and the bank box goes dark forever. And if not? I asked. He considered my apartment like a shopper. Then your clinic learns to fear audits, and your aunt's tires learn alignment the hard way. A threat on record, Priya said, loud enough for the phone to catch. Mac's eyes flicked to the blinking screen. Delete that, he said. No. I replied, surprised by my own calm. You're on speaker with a detective listening. Harris's voice emerged, dry thunder. Mr. Mac, you're advised to leave, he said. This conversation is recorded and part of an ongoing inquiry. Mac laughed once. Detective, always a pleasure, he said, backing to the door. Consider how much quieter a sealed life is, Ms. Ramos. He slipped out. Ethan grabbed my wrist. Please, he whispered. If this goes public, what's left of me burns. I looked at him and saw the marriage we had, the divorce we survived, and a future that kept flinching from us both. What's left of me burns either way, I said. Priya put a hand on my back, steady. We file first thing, she said. Protective order for Nora, motion to unseal under court supervision, complaint to the medical board about attempted coercion, and a police report supplement naming Mac. Aunt Lorraine nodded. Boundaries, she said. In writing. In ink. We slept in shifts that night, lights on, phones charging, documents backed up to 3 drives. At dawn, someone slid a photograph under my door showing my clinic with a red X. The courthouse hallway smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner. We walked it like a team that hadn't practiced but trusted muscle memory. Priya argued the emergency motions with sentences that clicked like locks. The seal shelters coercion, not safety. The petitioner faces ongoing threats. Public policy favors sunlight, where professional reputations are leveraged. The judge, a woman with a braid and skeptical eyes, granted partial relief. Harris could review Addendum B and summarize to the court. Laurel Bank would inventory copies under seal. The clinic was barred from soliciting my resignation until a hearing next week. When we stepped into the light, Ethan stood across the hall, hands in pockets, sober and small. I'll testify, he said, voice thin but standing. I'll name Mac. Harris nodded. You'll also own your part, he said. I will, Ethan replied, and for once he didn't look like a man acting honesty. He looked like a man borrowing it with intent to buy. We walked to the steps. Aunt Lorraine squeezed my fingers. Breathe, she said. In, out, own your bones. I pictured my patient's charts, the method that had rebuilt me, dates, vitals, progress notes, and I realized that documentation is a kind of love, attention paid in ink. I will heal, but not by forgetting. I will heal by writing what happened where it can't be erased. For older viewers who might be listening for the takeaway, here it is. Keep copies, ask for names, insist on writing, and never sign what you haven't read twice with someone who loves you watching your eyes. Closure is not silence. Closure is a record that lets you sleep. Priya tucked the folders beneath her arm. Tea at mine, she said. Then therapy, then a nap. Boundaries, Aunt Lorraine said, smiling. In writing. I looked at the courthouse doors, at the river beyond, at a blue patch of sky like clean paper. What you learn after a divorce, I said softly, is the cost of peace and the price of lies. I turned to Ethan. I will help where the law says help, and nowhere else. He nodded, tears bright, and didn't try to hug me, which felt like respect wearing a new suit. Then my phone rang, and Detective Harris said, "You need to hear what Addendum B actually says."